Okay, now we will start trimming out this model. Once again, I'd like to stress that this is hardwood, cherry, so take your time in cutting it. It's very important to have a very sharp razor saw. And one thing I'd like to mention is when you get lumber from us or you get lumber from the lumberyard or anywhere, you cannot assume that the end of the piece of wood is square. So what I generally do in full size and miniature is trim off the end of the board. And you can do this with your razor saw. This is going to ensure that you're starting with a piece that's nice and square. When you identify the various pieces of molding from the drawing, it's real nice to label the back so you know the proper orientation of the piece. I generally put a series of small arrows that's telling me this is the back side of the molding and this is up. The arrows are pointing up. And the reason I do several is because as you start working with your piece of molding, you're going to be chopping off. You will chop off arrows. So I have enough on there just to let me know that this is how this piece fits. Before cutting this piece, I'd like to talk a little bit about marking. Thickness of a pencil, even a very fine mechanical pencil like this, there's some built-in slop there. Which side of that pencil mark do you cut on? A far more accurate way of measuring and marking these moldings is to put that molding in position, hold it in place, and take an X-Acto knife, razor blade, something, and lay it alongside the piece and make a small little nick. This is the back of that miter. And then I will do my little reminder, and I know I want to cut on this side of that mark. Okay, we're going to place that piece of baseboard up against the model, but we're not entirely sure that that's a good fit. So we're going to take the remainder of our baseboard, we're going to cut the opposite angle on this piece, remembering that this is the back side, that's up. This piece is going to be used just to fit and just to see how accurate our miter is. If we're a little bit oversized on this piece, it's a lot easier to trim or sand a bit off the square cut as opposed to the miter. Once you start sanding or playing with that miter, disaster ensues. Okay, now this long piece we're going to use to test that joint, and that one looks very good. I'm not going to cut the long piece quite yet. I'd rather have this piece glued in position. It gives me a good foundation, an anchor, where I can lay this one, scribe it with the knife on the back side, and make that cross cut. Okay, to install this piece, we're going to use the construction adhesive and the ever popular jet glue to hold it in position. We're also going to use a block on the bottom of the model to ensure that this piece doesn't go too far below the wall or it's too high. We'll use magic tool to clean up the excess. Since this piece of molding is glued to wood, we're going to use wood glue as opposed to the construction adhesive. Put a little bit on the end joint, follow it up with a dot or two of the CA glue. I have it sitting flush on the workboard, so that everything should be in the proper position. And that just pops right in there. Before we proceed with the baseboard on this side of the model, I'd like to mention that the next piece of molding sits right on top of it like that. If you will look at a color photograph of this model, you can see the paint job is a yellow and a green. We designed this and also the chair rail molding and the crown molding in several pieces, so it might make your life easier for painting. You can pre-paint this piece green, pre-paint this one yellow. At the worst, after your mitering and gluing, you might have a little touch-up paint to do, but it'll be far easier than trying to cut that line in. Choose whichever way you are comfortable with. The procedure for this piece of molding is pretty much the same. Cut a square end on the board, mark it on the back so you know which end is up. Set it in place. Take your knife, we'll mark. Take your pencil. There's your reference mark for what direction the angle goes. We've checked the miter with the two pieces. That's a nice fit. This piece is wood glued to resin, so we're going to go back to the construction adhesive. Follow it up with a dot or two of the CA glue. Put this piece in position, mark it with our knife. Install this piece with wood glue. And jet glue. You may have noticed that in this whole procedure we have not taken a single measurement. I think if you have a good foundation, some object to work against, and scribing with a knife is a far more accurate way than transferring measurements or using a pencil. I think you'll have good success with this. And there you have a very nice miter, and that should do it. Repeat the process on the other side of the model.